Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Ancient Arguments, where we're looking at some of the methodologies of the big three famous ancient Greeks. Last time we looked at the Elenchus with Socrates. Today we're going to look at Plato with what is the Maieutic Method. Now, Plato's Maieutic Method is often mistaken for Socrates' Elenchus, or some people argue that it in fact is just the same thing. Despite similarities, philosophers like Fiona Leigh have argued that they are importantly different. Maieutic means midwifery, and this method has been framed as a technique for bringing ideas into the world instead of simply demonstrating that the respondent lacks knowledge, as the Elenchus does. It's similar in the sense that it is a discussion where ideas are tested, but the purpose is not the kind of negative project of challenging knowledge, but rather the positive project of finding or constructing new knowledge or new positions. So Leigh argues that this is a method not for defeating an argument, but rather for making one, by searching for what would defeat the argument and adjusting it accordingly. Note that this is very similar to Socrates' Elenchus in the sense that, for example, Euthyphro's position would keep shifting and Socrates would shift his argument to combat that position differently. And each time he shifted the argument, Euthyphro's argument would get a little bit stronger because it would be able to defeat the objection before, but not necessarily the next one to come. But in this method, we're going to look for support and objections to our claims, and we take our views and attempt to find what would count as a sufficient test of that view to either confirm or falsify it. And if they fail such a test, alter them accordingly. So instead of pursuing this route of only perfect knowledge is going to count, we're just trying to use the skeptic or the interlocutor as a way for us to improve our own ideas and to imagine what they would say to counter them so that we can make our ideas better. Leigh claims that Plato explains and demonstrates this method in Sophist, one of Plato's dialogues. It seems that if we are to accept Leigh's distinction, then this method is actually a much closer analog to modern pedagogical practice, rather than the Socratic method or the Elenchic method, since rarely is a teacher simply trying to just show a student that they are wrong, setting aside cases of discipline where you're trying to teach students perhaps a certain level of ethics and morality. They're often trying to help the student develop the skills and tools to create their own positions and understand where the weaknesses or strengths of those positions lie. Rarely do students these days walk out of a classroom saying, I know nothing. Usually we're trying to constructively build towards a positive project. As a skeptic, of course, I'm skeptical of that process, but the Maieutic method is importantly different from Socrates' much more skeptical practice as opposed to Plato's more kind of constructive project. That was the Maieutic method. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at Aristotle and the Endoxic method. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org and stay skeptical, everybody.